Here's Subban, long drive, it scores! PK Subban from center ice.
He's known as the King of the Hit, a title that speaks volumes about his impact on hockey. His name is synonymous with powerful hits and game-changing plays. But just how good was prime PK Subban actually? Hockey has seen many great defensemen, but few have played the game with such energy and style like Subban. You know what's amazing about PK Subban's story? Every time I look deeper into his career, I find something new that surprises me. If you love stories about hockey players who changed the game, smash that like button and hit subscribe right now. Because just like PK's famous slap shot, what's coming next is going to blow you away. Now, let's get back to how this all started. Born on May 13th, 1989, in Toronto, Ontario, Subban was not just a player, but a showman. From the outdoor rinks of his hometown to the bright lights of the NHL, his journey is nothing short of amazing. Imagine a young boy playing hockey with his brothers Malcolm and Jordan, sharing one pair of skates between them because their parents couldn't afford 3 pairs. Growing up in a Caribbean-Canadian family in a hockey-crazy country, PK stood out from the start. His father, Carl, who moved from Jamaica to Canada, worked 2 jobs just to keep his sons in hockey. The Subban basement became their first training ground, where Carl would make the boys practice until they got it right. At 6 years old, PK was already trying spin moves and big hits while other kids could barely skate straight. His minor hockey coaches couldn't believe his confidence. This kid who'd celebrate goals by sliding on his knees across the ice, something that drove traditional hockey people crazy, but made fans love him. Carl had one rule: if you want to play hockey, you need good grades. PK took this seriously, balancing hockey with schoolwork, often doing homework in the car between practices. But just how incredible was his rise to stardom? Let's find out. Growing up in Toronto's Rexdale neighborhood, young PK faced a unique challenge. His Caribbean roots made him stand out in a sport dominated by a different culture, but that never stopped him. By age 12, he was already turning heads in the Greater Toronto Hockey League, not just for his defensive skills, but for his natural ability to fire up the crowd. That's where the showman in him first appeared. He'd celebrate goals with dance moves, much to the annoyance of opposing parents, but to the delight of his teammates. The Subban household was like a mini hockey factory. Every morning started at 5 a.m., with Carl waking up his sons for practice before school. Their backyard rink, which Carl built himself by flooding their small yard, became the stuff of local legend. The neighbors would watch as the Subban boys practiced their shots and hits until dark. PK's mother Maria, despite knowing little about hockey at first, became the family's biggest cheerleader, working extra shifts as a dentist to help pay for equipment. PK's path to success wasn't smooth. Playing for the Markham Islanders, he was often told he was too small, too flashy, or not hockey enough. But his father Carl had taught him something important. Being different wasn't a weakness, it was his strength. Instead of changing his style, PK doubled down on it. He'd practice his signature spin moves for hours, perfecting the flashy style that would later make him a fan favorite in the NHL.
I don't even remember how it started. It just happened, and it doesn't seem to annoy him. So, we just continued to do it when we win.
His minor hockey days were marked by both brilliance and criticism. He'd make an amazing play, then get benched for being too risky. But that's what made PK special. He never changed who he was. By his early teens, PK was already showing signs of the player he'd become. He played with a mix of skill and physicality that made him stand out. While other defensemen stayed back, he'd jump into plays, create scoring chances, and still get back to make big hits. His coaches at the Toronto Marlboros saw something special in him, a rare combination of offensive flair and defensive toughness. This unique style would soon catch the eye of major junior scouts and set him on the path to the NHL. PK Subban's entry into the NHL wasn't the typical story of a first-round draft pick.
This weekend it's about the drafts early in the picks and about the trades as well. I know you mentioned you're not actively shopping someone like PK Subban, but you're fielding calls. Where are you at with that process right now?
Well, everybody's been talking about a trade that never happened, and it's probably never going to happen. So,
Selected 43rd overall by the Montreal Canadiens in 2007, many teams passed on him because they thought his style was too risky. But PK was about to prove them all wrong. After being drafted, he returned to the Belleville Bulls in the OHL, where he put up incredible numbers. 76 points in just 58 games. He wasn't just scoring, he was dominating games in a way defensemen rarely did. In 2010, the Canadiens finally called him up during the playoffs. Talk about pressure. His first NHL games were in the middle of a playoff run against the Washington Capitals and Pittsburgh Penguins. But PK played like he'd been there for years. He jumped right into Montreal's top 4 defensemen and helped the team reach the conference finals. Fans couldn't believe this rookie was playing with such confidence in the playoffs. His first full NHL season showed everyone what he could do. Right from the start, PK brought something different to the game. He'd make huge open ice hits, then follow them up with end-to-end rushes. His slap shot became feared around the league. It wasn't just hard, it was accurate. In his rookie season, he scored 14 goals and added 24 assists, but the numbers didn't tell the whole story. He was changing games with his energy and style. What really made PK stand out was his ability to get under opponents' skin. He'd make a big play, then celebrate with his signature moves. Veterans around the league hated it, but fans couldn't get enough. By the end of his first season, the Bell Center crowd would roar every time he touched the puck. He wasn't just playing hockey, he was putting on a show. Montreal hadn't seen a defenseman like this since the days of Chris Chelios. PK Subban's prime years, from 2013 to 2019, showed just how special he really was. In 2013, he won the Norris Trophy as the NHL's best defenseman, joining an elite club that includes legends like Nicklas Lidstrom and Ray Bourque. But it wasn't just about winning the award, it was how he did it. That season, he put up 38 points in just 42 games during the lockout-shortened season. When you watch those games now, you see a player who controlled every shift he played. The 2014-15 season might have been his most impressive. Subban scored 15 goals and added 45 assists, but the numbers don't tell the whole story. He was playing almost 27 minutes a game, handling power play, penalty kill, and tough matchups against the league's best players. During one stretch in February, he played 6 games where he never left the ice for more than 45 seconds at a time. That's the kind of stamina most players can only dream of. What made Prime Subban so special was his ability to do things other defensemen couldn't. Take the 2015 playoffs against Boston. Down by 1 goal, he picked up the puck behind his net, split through the entire Bruins team, and scored a goal that had the whole hockey world talking. Or the time he hit Steven Stamkos so hard, it changed the momentum of an entire playoff series. These weren't just highlights, they were moments that changed games. In Nashville, after the shocking trade from Montreal, Subban took his game to another level. During the 2017 Stanley Cup run, he was unstoppable. Remember that game against Chicago in the playoffs? 3 points, including a slapshot goal that was clocked at 108.5 miles per hour. Even the Nashville fans, who were skeptical about losing their captain Shea Weber for Subban, couldn't help but fall in love with his style. But Prime Subban wasn't just about offense. People forget that he could shut down the best players in the game. Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, Connor McDavid, they all struggled against him. His skating was so good that he could make a mistake and still get back in time to break up a play. In one game against Pittsburgh, he blocked 9 shots and still had enough energy to score the game winner in overtime. The numbers during his prime are staggering. 408 points in 645 games, a plus 62 rating, and over 1,400 hits. He was putting up forward-like numbers while playing top-pair defense. Even more impressive was his durability. During his prime years, he never missed more than 4 games in a season. Night after night, he'd play 25-plus minutes, taking on the toughest assignments while still finding ways to create offense. The thing about Prime Subban that really set him apart was his ability to rise in big moments. In elimination games during his prime, he averaged nearly a point per game, unheard of for a defenseman. He had this way of making something happen just when his team needed it most. Whether it was a big hit, a crucial block, or a highlight reel goal, PK always seemed to deliver when the pressure was highest. Despite all his success, PK Subban faced plenty of challenges in his career. The biggest shock came in 2016 when Montreal traded him to Nashville.
Well, PK Subban was a fan favorite in Montreal. A lot of Habs fans very, very angry with this.
This wasn't just any trade. It happened just 30 minutes before his no-trade clause was about to kick in. Imagine finding out you're leaving the team you've played your whole career for, the city where people treated you like family. The trade hit him hard, but in true PK style, he turned it into motivation. Critics were always after him too. They said he was too flashy, too outspoken, didn't play the right way. Some old-school hockey people couldn't handle his goal celebrations or his confident personality. Even when he was playing his best hockey, you'd hear comments like, "He's a liability in his own end," or "He's not a team player." But the numbers told a different story. During his prime, his teams always had better defensive stats when he was on the ice. Injuries started catching up with him too. In 2016, he suffered a serious back injury that changed his game. Remember that explosive first step that made him so dangerous? It wasn't quite the same after that. He had to adapt, play smarter instead of relying on pure athleticism. Then came the foot injuries, the knee problems, the kind of issues that pile up when you play an aggressive style like his. The pressure of big contracts brought its own challenges. After signing a $72 million deal, every small mistake got magnified. People expected him to be perfect every night, forgetting that even the best players have off games. The media scrutiny was intense. If his team lost, somehow it was always Subban's fault. But here's what made PK special. He never let these challenges change who he was. When people criticized his style, he kept playing his way. When injuries slowed him down, he found new ways to be effective. Through it all, he kept that same smile, that same energy that made fans love him in the first place. PK Subban's impact on hockey goes way beyond his stats. Sure, he finished with 467 points in 834 games. Impressive numbers for a defenseman. But what he did for the game itself was even bigger. He showed kids, especially those from different backgrounds, that they could make it in hockey while staying true to themselves. In a sport that often values tradition over personality, PK dared to be different.
PK Subban his pledge to raise $10 million for the Montreal Children's.
Off the ice, his $10 million pledge to the Montreal Children's Hospital in 2015 was the largest donation ever by a Canadian athlete. This wasn't just writing a check. He actually spent time with sick kids, brought them gifts, and made their hospital stays a little brighter. The hospital even named their atrium after him. Even after being traded from Montreal, he kept every penny of that commitment. His style of play changed how teams look at defensemen. Before PK, most teams wanted stay-at-home defenders who rarely took risks. But his success showed that a defenseman could be exciting, could jump into plays, could be a game changer. Watch any NHL game today, and you'll see young defensemen trying those spin moves and end-to-end rushes that PK made famous. In the community, Subban became more than just a hockey player. He started Blue Line Buddies in Nashville, a program that brought together police officers and underprivileged kids at games. During COVID-19, he helped raise money for healthcare workers. When racial issues in hockey came up, he wasn't afraid to speak out and push for change. His personality brought new fans to hockey. People who never watched the sport started tuning in just to see what PK would do next. Whether it was his wild suits before games, his funny interviews, or his electric playing style, he made hockey more entertaining. He proved you could be serious about winning while still having fun playing the game. PK Subban's career was a mix of amazing plays, big hits, and unforgettable moments. Whether you loved him or not, you couldn't take your eyes off him when he was on the ice. From his Norris Trophy win to his community work, he changed what it meant to be a hockey player. So, what was your favorite PK moment? Maybe it was a huge hit, spectacular goal, or just one of his classic celebrations. Drop your memories in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that bell button to catch our next video about hockey's greatest stars.